that's a collaboration, which is the pretty hard part, right? So how to combine all these things, and it's very, very hard to find that creative, let's say, director or game director who can have the whole thing in his head, especially when it comes to these bigger games that we are doing right now. Even though you have the idea, it doesn't really mean that you still have a good basis for the whole game, because you might have just like a tiny little perspective on the concept. It's a very collaborative effort, and bringing in experts and trying to find a cool thing for 30 years, and still is magic to me. Like how on earth this kind of everything comes together eventually.
Welcome to the Creative Collaboration Podcast.
Hey, thank you. Welcome to Housemarque's new podcast studio.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
in downtown Helsinki.
We are in your new offices in downtown Helsinki.
Indeed.
Ilari Kuittinen. Founder, yes. I guess, and CEO.
Yes, co-founder, managing director. In the PlayStation Studio vocabulary, it's Studio Head.
Oh.
I don't know, maybe they sized up my head. I had the biggest head, so I got that title.
That's perfect. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about creative collaboration. And the theme of this sort of podcast is how do we get this working? How do we create good games that sell with so many different departments, different types of people, and artists, engineers.
How to make great games.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to talk about. But I thought maybe you could begin by talking a little bit about how you got into the industry. And
oh yeah, well, against the odds, I would say. So I was co-founding a studio in '93, just a couple of years before Housemarque, called Returnal. And I got there because I met the guy in my teens. When I was in the mid-'80s, there was a guy in Joensuu, small town in the eastern part of Finland, doing Commodore 64 games. And I became a friend of this guy, and fast forward, I was probably one of the first game testers in Finland. Because I could test this game and have this C cassette thing with the Commodore 64, and I could play his game. So that was when I was a teenager. Fast forward some years, and then he asked me to help to set up the studio, or it was a freelancing studio. So we got a game called Elfmania out on Amiga in '94. But that was kind of the start. So I happened to know a guy. There was two guys in Finland in the 80s who were like these bedroom coders that got internationally published, and I happened to meet the other guy. And what are the odds? 1 in 2 million or whatever, and the timing and everything. So without that, I wouldn't be here.
Cool. And what do you do now?
Yeah, well, as mentioned, I'm a studio head running the studio in a way, but in reality, all the other guys are doing the heavy lifting at the moment. But yeah, so try to take, as a managing director, you have some legal obligations to make sure that everything's running according to laws and everything is organized well. And of course, there's basically interface with, of course, PlayStation Studio leadership and teams and whatever. So collaborating, of course, teams here, and my basically executive team and mostly, and then of course interfacing with the PlayStation Studio people.
Yeah. And how would you describe sort of your role in the creative process? And when I say creative process, I mean, like, let's say, the creative process of making a game, getting a game made, not just drawing art or whatever. Or if it's changed, then what did it used to be?
I think it would be short because I don't have much to do with creative process at the moment. I've had kind of earlier. I think it's changed over the year, of course, many times, but there was kind of some time where it kind of was very actively part of the brainstorming things, and because me and Mikael Haveri, our biz dev guy, we were kind of pitching games, and of course we needed to understand what they are and be part of that process. That hey, this would be cool. So I would say that like mostly it's been in the very early stages of the concept, whether facilitating this pitch, Fridays, make your own concept in a week. We have had those. So some of the games have come out of these pitch days, internal pitch days, and but also through the brainstorming and like, hey, what would be cool thing to do? So I think, but it's kind of has changed. So not doing that. Unfortunately, it's been, of course, super fun, but not being that lately. The past few years, I haven't been that involved with the creative process. So,
do you miss it?
Well, of course, that's the exciting part.
Yeah.
Like, especially, of course, most of the games or ideas never became games or game products. So, but like that is pretty cool to. I think one of the highlights, of course, we are blessed in this industry when you talk. We have chance to work with some of the most talented, fun, intelligent people you can meet, and it's very fun to riff out ideas and whatnot. So certainly that's been a great part of the great memories, and like especially if there's comes kind of some idea that like whether you recognize that, hey, this would be cool, and eventually it might get further or even get into the release like years and years and years later. So that is pretty cool. Like Returnal, I remember we were thinking about this already 2015. So we felt at that time we were doing smaller downloadable games. So we felt that one path would be that there are three things. We self-publish a game, which was Nex Machina a couple of years later, and then or do some multiplayer game, multiplayer expertise, so that became our Battle Royale, Storm Divers, and then third one was like, let's pitch bigger games. So Returnal became, was part of that. It's like, hey, we need to kind of think about bit of a bigger games than like what we are doing at the moment. And we're very excited to start thinking about that and collaborate, of course, with the lovely, great creative guys.
Yeah. All right. So, but can you remember, let's say, the first time or an earlier time where creative collaboration played a major role in development? Where
I was involved.
Yeah.
Not, I think that started maybe early 2000s when we finished doing a couple of snowboarding games, and we were pitching. Well, actually, already it's a funny thing that we were already pitching a bit bigger third-person action game in 2004, 5, 6, and I was kind of involved with that, and even with the kind of story and like it was quite fun to think about. So I think that was the first one. It was kind of a concept we never sold. So that was interesting. But I think that was kind of a field that was kind of the early ones where I was pretty involved.
Yeah, and what was that like from your perspective, like being part of the?
Of course, yeah, of course, exciting. Of course, you just certainly feel that you are incapable of doing the job, but still, you just imposter syndrome is there for sure. But like we have, of course, you just have to do something and then present that forward to potential publishers, and so that was I think that was kind of the first, and that was already like 8 years into the business. So but of course I can't remember that. I would hard to remember whether there was, but that I distinctly feel that I was a part of part of evolving at least some part of it.
Yeah, got it. And not being a traditional creative, what does creative collaboration mean to you? Like the concept, if you will.
That's a collaboration, which is the pretty hard part, right? So how to combine all these things, and it's very, very hard to find that creative, let's say, director or game director who can like have the whole thing in his head, especially when it comes to these bigger games that we are doing right now. It is challenging. Easy. I think it's still. I feel that it's only very few people can do it properly, especially if they are mostly doing that the main concept by themselves.
Yeah,
it's very hard to find a team. I think I still the thing that like I think no studio has too many of these people who can create something new. I would argue. Of course, I'm just seeing this from my 30-year perspective. Was running first quite a small studio, now being a bit bigger PlayStation studio. But I think it's challenging. Let's put it that way. And even though you have the idea, it doesn't really mean that you still have a good basis for the whole game, because you might have just like a tiny little perspective on the concept. So what it should be, of course, it's a very collaborative effort and bringing in experts and trying to find a cool thing. But on the other hand, like there should be some people to guide that process.
Yeah,
and that's pretty unicorn kind of a quality, that you could keep everything in your head and still like give some authority for other people to, you know, create a bit of part of your baby, right? So a bit of part of your creative thing you're trying to creative vision you're trying to do. So
you think it's essentially you need a good game director, let's say, and then there's obviously also a process with the bigger team.
Sure. And of course, ideally you would have creative director, game director, you know, art director, you know, combining these things together. And of course, then eventually you need to start to think about the feasibility of bringing production people, because it's always like shoot for the stars and land on the moon, like we have done sometimes. So so the reality, you know, it's I think games, I heard a nice term that like games are kind of a commercial art. Yeah. Especially at this stage where we have big projects from Saros. We are shooting this in late November 25. We have 4 months to go to launch our next big IP. Mm-hmm. We have in total like a bit of 100 internal developers and, you know, 150 other people involved. So 250 or so people involved. That's a complexity nobody's gonna be able to manage
on their
themselves.
Own. No,
And it's totally different what we did, like games with 15, 20 people, like not so many years ago, a decade ago.
Yeah. And sort of speaking to that, or on that, in your experience, what's the right balance between, you know, strong individual creative vision and keeping the team aligned?
Well, especially it's a tricky balance, right? So how do I think we've been kind of try to find a way still. I'm sure we haven't found the optimal way to how to manage these bigger teams, like how to organize that. So that's a pretty tricky thing. So I think but I can certainly say that it's certainly easier if you have only 15 people in the team than 150 or 250, you know, people trying to build the same game. It is a tricky one, right? So on the other hand, you know, there should be a strong vision, and vision holder, whoever that is, should be able to guide people, but he can't be so hands-on, or she can't be so hands-on that like nobody can manage this by themselves. So I think it's that quality. The ideal quality would be that they would be able to share the authority and give independent, you know, decision making to different parts, but still kind of a guide towards this cohesive vision. There's no, I don't know, this is why I'm still, you know, I've been watching this in the sidelines like here for 30 years, and still it's magic to me, like how on earth this kind of everything comes together eventually, and how these decisions being made, because there's you know, like today there's probably dozens of different decisions being made, or how maybe even, of course, well, we have hundreds maybe. So and try to get towards to that final game. So nobody can. There's no 2020 hindsight even looking back, because everybody has their own peak hole just to look through.
Yeah, I guess it also in the different teams it must, you know, gel over time as well. Yeah. It's like you find your approach to this, and you know, obviously there are still individuals who, you know, run an iron fist when it comes to to like.
Yeah, sometimes you should. I think there should be like different phases. That like at some point, you need to stop prototyping and like just commit.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the tough thing for many people to do. Hey, I have these kind of ideas like 4 months before launch, right? But no, you stop,
Yeah, save
let's
it
save it for the next one. Yeah. But of course that is kind of the nature of the beast, I suppose.
Yeah. All right. And can you remember a project where this, like for you guys, where without naming names probably, but when this really worked, or when if you remember where it's like, yeah, no, that project we really.
Yeah, well, of course, you look at our games, we pretty well reviewed games and some successful, otherwise as well. So award-winning games. So the results have been pretty good. I think the way making it might have been pretty chaotic. So hard to really say that. Like, it's always been it always seems to be a bit of a struggle to go through the finish line. So we always have to be able to do that, reach that. But yeah, well, for instance, the latest, of course, is easy to say because there's some external validation in the form of quite a few awards. Returnal, of course, at least the creative vision was great. It's just something, bit of a new thing, roguelike, light third-person action adventure, with the bigger budgets than those games are typically done with. So at least that, but we shipped that during pandemic, offsite via online, and that wasn't an optimal process for sure. So we certainly learned a lot and have changed our way to how we do these things, but still maybe we haven't found the greatest way still. But there's always kind of a learning how to.
Yeah, and also if
forward.
You evolve and you change and you go for bigger things, then obviously, or perhaps the process isn't the same process might not work. In the
not
new,
at all.
So you have to reinvent yourself a little bit.
Yeah, and I think some things takes time. The team, it's always like, basically you could say that if this one team member leaves, another one comes there, it's a new team.
Yeah.
If you really kind of exaggerate a bit. But it is kind of true that like then it takes time for the team to gel together and work together and find their way to collaborate. So it always seems to be based on the personalities as well, a little bit. Looking relatively close, but still far enough, not without a deeper understanding of how this works.
Yeah, and you mentioned the pandemic, of course. How do you guys approach in-office work versus remote or hybrid?
Well, especially now, we tend to try to get everybody here for the most of the days. So it's a shipping phase of the game. So I think we're pretty successful with that. So its participation rate here is really high. And, So yeah, I think we are kind of old school in that way. At least I am. I'm not sure if everybody is, but I do feel that's why we have a nice cafeteria, for instance, there upstairs, where people can come to have a breakfast and bump into people. And I would certainly believe that these coffee maker, water cooler discussions that accidentally you hear something, and you're doing that. I didn't know. And this sort of informal information change is very hard when you're just looking at your couple screens and doing Google Meets and whatever.
Yeah, and especially when we're talking about collaboration again and exchanging ideas and getting new impressions.
I think the theory, at least at the beginning of the project, should be the people just be in the same room, and then at the end, especially maybe there's a little bit more leeway in between. But it is very hard, as it's very hard. You've been running companies and so forth, establishing companies, and like it's very hard to get everybody on the same page, even even if you're in a small room with 2 guys.
Oh, yeah.
like but if you have 100 guys or whatever, it's even harder. And then expand it like development team and code dev team. So it's that's kind of what the age old challenge. That even I remember that even having a game with only 15-20 people, that sometimes you're making some people making different games, you know.
Yeah, I've heard a few horror stories about that, of course, and that's I mean, again, it's easy. It can easily end up that way if you don't have, let's say, alignment, or if you're not collaborating. I guess if in the broader term, right?
Yeah, and it's not easy. I have to say, it's a lot of there's a lot of information, right? Like a lot of decision needs to be done. And what is the best way to kind of share that information? This can be information overload. Easily can be information overload. There can be. So communication is always kind of the key thing, as you know, in the companies. Like how much and how is there too much, too little? There's always somebody said, I didn't know. Nobody told me. But like even though it's told like 5 emails and town halls and whatever, nobody told me. Well, you should attend and read the emails or whatever, Slack messages or whatever. So it's always, and some people need a different way of communication, I suppose. But it's hard. It's a kind of it's a big thing, you know, building games with hundreds of years worth of work, and it is quite extraordinary if you think of it. Very few. We are one of these industries that has this big collaboration. Of course, there are others ones, but like I think most of the people don't collaborate in a project that has more than 10 people.
But it's also there's so many different I wouldn't say types of people or anything, but you know, like artists are generally different from engineers, right? Yeah. And then you have marketing, which is a different type again, right? But also very important for everything to come together if you're gonna sell any copies of your game, right? So, and speaking of which, how early in a game's development do you think the commercial voices should be allowed in the discussion, so to speak?
Of course, now we are part of the VMP 4 years, part of the PlayStation Studios, so it just, of course, changed a bit. That I guess, in a sense, there's a touch point early on, like seeing that for instance, what the perception for Returnal was, for instance, and what kind of pros and cons viewed by the consumers, and try to learn from that. And I guess you have at least that sort of a touch point there, and try to figure out that what would be kind of a way to move forward. But I guess it starts for us for this sort of a thing. I think we started kind of build the things eventually, like 1 year before the launch, like start to have this collaboration and then start to have the first beats and so forth. So, or maybe actually I would say earlier, like 18 months, like start building the kind of what the strategies and when the first announce and so forth. So have a teaser trailer and so forth. So in this context, it starts quite relatively early, but on the other hand, we kind of announced this last February, which is like 13 or so months before the launch. So that was a teaser trailer, and now we got a gameplay trailer a couple months back in September. And now, of course, we start to kind of have additional media beats, as they call it. So. But yeah, it's with the scale it seems to be like 1 year window, then start to build up the hype, if you like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think in Housemarque is something like marketing involved? Anything in the actual creative process? Do they get to give feedback?
Not really, as far as I know. Of course, we try to take into account the learnings and you know, there's some consumer feedback or whatever, you know, there's a nice report about what Returnal players thought about the game and that sort of a thing, and pros and cons. So I guess that's has influenced our kind of a thinking that how to improve that consumer gamer experience. But not really that like, hey, you should have this and that in that game so we can sell more copies. So there's not at least for us, it's not that sort of a science.
No, yeah. And what if we add the community, for example, if we count that as a commercial voice? Or maybe it's not, but
yeah, we have, we have with kind of a still old school single player game development studio. So we have quite a little, I have to admit, we have quite a little of that, and that community is mostly on the PlayStation, like blog, whatever PlayStation channel side of things. So that's so the messages go through those channels mostly, and they do some of the discussion go in there. Of course, we have Discords and whatnot, but we don't have a kind of a hands to kind of take care of it as actively as we would like. But
okay,
that's what it is.
And speaking of them, then your owner / publisher, how has things changed since you got brought into the family, so to speak?
How are you saying? Knowledge adds pain, as well. So we were kind of isolated with some of the things that happening within, but like it's awesome. That was changed. That we are kind of, it's more transparent to us that like what other plans and what kind of things we are trying to do, and especially when it comes to marketing. So we are, I would say, more involved as well. Well, in that regards, we I think with Returnal we did a lot. We did a lot actually. Let's take it back. But yeah, it's still collaboration and try to kind of have a great plan and know what is expected of us and what we do in house. Of course, we wanna be participating in how the trailers look, and we're doing quite a lot of that capture and everything, scripting or whatever, wherever in house actually at the moment. So doing lots ourselves.
So you have a lot of autonomy, I would say, but it's still
in a way, in a way, it's a bit of a struggle at the time. So I guess our Mikael, who is now in charge of this marketing, and he has his struggles with the system. But I think in overall, I think it's looking very good. There's a lot of support coming to the game and a lot of marketing behind it. So I would guess that Saros will be the best marketed, at least biggest marketing budget of any games. I think maybe bigger than all the rest of the games during the past 30 years. Count together. So maybe easily.
Yeah, it could be. Okay, so do you have any that you're aware of or involved in about like tools, workflows, or structures that are particularly helpful for the creative collaboration and working across disciplines? Because I think that's a big part of it as well.
Well, I guess it's more like, tools, if you think about facilitated ideation systems, these sort of things, like how you create ideas. I think that's what we have, for instance, done the, since this spring, done some strategy workshops and trying to figure out the next 10 years of Housemarque and what that might look like. And it is still not finished, but I think that's facilitated like workshop things. I think that's kind of what the tool we have been using. And whether that's kind of think about longer term, like for instance, what kind of things we would see that will be in our games in the coming decade or so. So, you start to have some formation of ideas, they group together, and it's kind of, you have lots of posted posts and discussions and that sort of thing. I think that's probably, certainly is a collaboration with quite a few people. So it's kind of old school in a way, but then you need to gather that together. And of course, something like mirror boards, if you need to do it online, that sort of that you can have mind maps and the workspace, shared workspace. But I think still the physical one is probably the most useful.
Yeah.
Because we have very small screens, typically, to kind of do that work together. So.
Yeah. But you mentioned, I mean, just having or trying to get everyone to be on site is also an approach, right? A thought out ideas like that obviously facilitates, creative alignment.
Yeah, that's easy. And it's kind of the worst thing is hybrid, that somebody is on this big small screen. Yeah. We are kind of having brainstorming, and 3 people are there. Like that's like, come on, how do you do that? So that's kind of the worst. I feel that, of course, there will be somebody. Oh, it works really well for us, but it's the context, right? So if there's a 5 people studio and you might be distributed really nicely, but if it's like 50 or so it might be different.
Yeah, for sure. Any mistake or tough lesson that you've learned personally about collaboration in your 30 years or so?
Oh no, everything has gone so well that I don't have anything to comment. Yeah, I think the facilitation is kind of interesting in that, like how some people want to maybe work on their own and then bring their latest creation to everybody to see, and maybe that's not too always is the best approach. That maybe there should be more collaboration. I guess my answer is that, like, maybe kind of have at least, even though there are some main creatives like most of the games have, but those people would need to be able to share that kind of ownership as well with other people. But that's kind of probably sometimes easier said than done, because some of the personalities are perfectionists, right? And people want to hold everything to themselves, and sometimes reveal the card, and like this can be that, like, need to know basis, and it's very, very difficult at times, but that can work really well as well. So if the team is okay with that, but typically the people want to know why we're doing this, and at least that is kind of maybe that would be the tool. Why we are doing this. Yeah, you should be able to, if you're creative, and to with whichever capacity, why we are doing this, why this is a good thing for the game, and why this could make this thing better. Yeah,
no, I think the finding the why, or the why has been discussed on the show many times before, actually. And I think you're right when you say that people sort of expect to know why they're doing something. Yeah, or at least that helps.
That helps. And at least you are more involved.
And so, do you have you formed a culture to sort of capture this, or is it more about, let's hope we hire the right person that's strong creative leader, but also
we certainly try to facilitate this, but always about the people and how they work together and chemistry and all that. So it's not that straightforward all the time. Yeah, but I think of course typically people are great and like can collaborate, but there's still the methods. I guess there could be better tools as well that the company should like say that, hey, you should use these tools or whatever, and please meet each other like once a week, or even it can be that basic. Sometimes it's like, oh, you didn't have a directors meeting on a weekly basis at all. What the hell? Sometimes that's happened. That like they always directors of the game are kind of working in their own space, that they don't ever have their own way of communicating or working together. I think we're still like working together. It's such a dumb thing, but like it feels like dumb, but that would be ideal, right? Yeah. Like let's try to get ourselves in the same headspace and have the same goals and why we are doing this and what we could try to accomplish.
Yeah. And have you ever had to kill your darling? It's like you had a great idea that you brought to the team, and the team was like, no, we're not going to do that, Ilari.
Well, by necessity, for sure. It's funny thing that the things we have invested most, we never could sell those projects. Like the PlayStation 2 thing, we did a PlayStation 2 engine and like quite a bit demo. Like like and so forth. So we then needed to let that go, and or Storm Divers, Battle Royale, take on Battle Royale. We started actually that as well. Actually, that's interesting. That's one of the projects that started as a pitch Friday pitch. You know, so somebody was pitching this, and that was before, of course, before Fortnite and PUBG. So it was pretty funny that in 2015, like about 10 years ago, we were pitching the first time, I think, during Gamescom, and we had to explain what Battle Royale is.
Yeah.
And Brendan was I think just doing H1Z1 like mod at the time, so it was just starting.
Pretty
like Arma was there, I think, but some guy picked it up for some reason, and then let's do our version. This sounds like good, and well, we were kind of right. It eventually picked up, a couple of years later. Yeah. So we were a bit too late to do that, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So, what advice would you give to someone that's either starting fresh in the industry or maybe starting a new gig in terms of how they can contribute in the creative collaboration?
Creative collaboration. So you're starting a new game studio, or just
joining the industry from school, or
I guess this is easy in a way. It's good to know the history of games, understand a little bit of that, and especially if you are into the creatives, understand the designs, and of course play a lot of Nintendo games, I suppose, and other greats. But I think that's a no-brainer. Play more than Roblox games, please. It is kind of tricky. If you think about, for instance, last few years for us, we had to kind of hire experienced people, and as things spread out, we have about 100 or so in the development. They start to be really specialized. So we have had to kind of hire specialized people to certain roles, and they typically have lots of experience on those roles. So we hope that we can start hiring juniors in the starting next year, or at least have a lot of training places for them, even if we can eventually hire them. I don't know. But I guess it's simple. Just do stuff related to your art. It's kind of easy. Some of the recent indie successes have started with the guy who just wanted to start do something different. Bellatro, Vampire Survivors, and so on. So these guys work on their game for years before.
Oh yeah.
Before they started to kind of have even an idea that this can be published. Probably, at least that's my guess, because some of those stuff taken by. So do stuff, even little stuff. If you want to design a game, there's a lot of tools you can, of course, and everything, right? Artist, writer, whatever. That's what you have. You have time, probably, in your hands, and you better show that, like, you are interested in your art. Art, and do that.
Any advice then on how to get along or collaborate, or be in a creative process with others that are not an artist or not a designer, like cross?
You mean like coders?
How do you
collaborate with coders? I know that's kind of I guess it's like mentioned earlier. Like, I guess it's sort of this. Of course, meeting is a tool. Hopefully, you can use it efficiently. I guess then you need to be brave. I think the reason why I mentioned these facilitated meetings and posted, like, typically there's rounds of like gathering ideas, and everybody is silent and writing down things. So you don't need to speak. So instead of like a group meeting where everybody's speaking, it's easier for everybody to kind of get ideas out. So I would hope that companies will use that sort of tools that everybody can contribute. Some people might be shy to, speak up. So I guess that's one advice.
Yeah.
But of course, you should be brave enough. Hopefully, the culture is such that you can speak up and like, hey, what is this? Or ask questions. I guess learning from more experienced people. I guess that's, of course, when you get into a game studio, then of course that should be your key learning tool. That like, don't be afraid to ask. I think. Like, not just like do something for a week and you're like, I don't know how to do this. And like,
yeah.
Rather than like, hey, I've been stuck here for a while and hopefully a few hours instead of few days.
Yeah.
and ask, everybody's learning. It's ever learning. It's a kind of doing a game is a discovery. We don't know what the game finally is. Our Saros, for instance, we know it in 4 months' time, what the game is fully what it is. We have a pretty good idea, right? But still there's kind of these minor things.
Yeah, that's cool. And do you think being a good collaborator, if you will, is that something you're born with or something you have to learn over time?
Well, you can be born with that, but I think it's just you can learn that. Like, I think listen more than speak, and respect each other and respect everybody in the room, and that's sort of that's basic human relation stuff. But that's might be, and that's why kind of these facilitated things are great instead of like meetings, because people don't want to speak up, or some people just want to talk a lot. and we have a tendency that like wanna speak out our greatest idea immediately, right? So you need to kind of restrain yourself at times, at least, or even actually most of the times, like, okay, let's listen to and maybe ask questions, and sometimes it's good to be the last one to speak.
Yeah,
not the first one.
No, then you sort of have a chance to analyze.
I'm sure there would be a lot of books about this as well.
Oh, dude! I
think to be a great collaborator.
I think
read one of those books. I think that would be at least one.
Maybe that should be part of the onboarding package when you start a new job. But I think most of the things that we talk about obviously are solved.
Yes,
at least yes. Theoretically.
Theoretically, yes, but there's always I know what you mean, right? So everything has been solved, but like, is there anybody to actually use most of the greatest tools? Let's say a few of those tools.
Yeah. Have you ever worked in any other industry where you?
No, that's
no time for that.
No, I was 25 when we started the Housemarque, so
yeah.
That was 30 years ago.
All right. Any sports or military service or anything else where you feel like you learned things about how to be a good team player or?
We have to in Finland. We have to do military service if you're male, and voluntary if you're female. Actually, my younger daughter did, and she's still training recruits in the army at the moment.
Cool.
So it was kind of good to see. Actually, what was kind of the biggest learning is that you face with the whole, that year class people that you have been you have your own bubbles. If you're the high school or like occupational school or whatever, like be a car mechanic or then just read books and like learn English or whatever, and that there's kind of different lines of people. And then in the army, at least, I was like, oh my God, there's so many different kind of people, because you live in a bubble, you have certain friends and with certain mental capabilities and skills and whatever, and then you meet the rest of the people, and you're like, oh, okay, I think this might be a guy, you kind of started to understand why army has certain some certain ways of doing things.
Yeah,
like you need to be to the point and very straightforward. No room for interpretation at times.
Yeah.
And of course, within that, there's of course special groups that like they're totally different, highly functional team. So that's another thing.
Yeah. And so we sort of touched on this with the coders before, but do you think there are any sort of departments that tend to clash more than others?
Well, I don't know. Maybe, of course, it's kind of especially we are more gameplay-centric things. I guess maybe the most attention might be related to gameplay versus something else, or within the gameplay. What are the decisions? No, this is the wrong way to do it. No, we should do it that way. Maybe there's that a little bit. And maybe now a little bit new that like how narrative is kind of interacting with all the gameplay. So we certainly have added some now more narrative part of it, and that's kind of always this. I don't know, healthy, but there's a tension that how to integrate all these things, and because you can easily have lots of ideas from with your narrative. Hey, let's do this and that, and like, wait a minute, we need to kind of see that whether this fits and how much work this creates and that sort of a thing. So maybe that's for us. Maybe it's kind of the creative tension.
All right, let's skip to the hardest question. Is there someone else you'd like to see on the show? Need someone that I should talk to about these things?
Of course, there are great companies here in Finland. Of course, one great guy would be Antti Ilvessuo, co-founder of Red Links. Trials fame, and now actually he has a new company. So he's a creative guy. A few kind of close by, here. So it certainly is one. Of course, and now former game director Harry Gruger. Of course, he would be. He would actually know.
He would know what he's talking about. Yeah.
He would know instead of me. Like I don't know much, but he would know everything about this. So.
Yeah, no, I will reach out to Harry as well, and absolutely Antti as well. Cool. And where can people find more about you or Housemarque, of course?
Well, housemarque.com, I suppose. So we have links there. Saros coming up.
Don't miss it.
Get your PlayStation 5 ready in March 20th.
Yeah.
Of course, I have a LinkedIn. I probably don't have the best profile there, but like through LinkedIn, actually, you can reach me. Also.
Okay.
So that's kind of the easiest, of course.
Yeah.
The way to reach out.
Yeah. So if someone thought you said something smart or not so smart, they can reach out.
They can like, oh, you're stupid, Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and
thanks for seeing you here. I think I was kind of remembering that. I think the first time we met in Tokyo.
Yeah, I think so too.
The Nordic trip to GGS.
A very long time
2009 probably, or something
so,
like that.
Well.
So.
Yeah, good
great.
times. Yeah, and again, thanks for lending me the studio as well.
Yeah, well, we have this here.
Yeah,
so that's
perfect.
Great. All right.
Thanks, man.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks.